let's look Torianda pass. It's also called the bullfight pass. So I'm the matador, Kjar's the bull, just like his jiu-jitsu. What are you joking, bro? I want to be the bull. Okay, so from here, let's talk about gi grips and no gi grips. It depends on the cut of the person's gi. Sometimes you're the people with a really narrow gi. I personally like to grab on the insides. Sometimes that's hard to do. Usually I'll slap the material first, just with my hands, then make the grip. But there's no strict rule on whether you grab on the inside, whether you grab on the outside, or whether you grab on the top of the knees. It's just down to personal preference. I do prefer the inside. It just means that when I pin his knee to the mat, all my weight's going on. Again, it's just down to what you want. There is advantages and disadvantages to using gi grips and no gi grips. The gi grip is more robust, which means I can really use it to pin Kjar's knee, and then I can drop into that space. No gi, and we'll be covering these in more detail on another class. The no gi I'm here, because I'm not going to pin the knee on this one, I'll just mainly move it as a throwback. So from there I'll be cutting the angle and probably moving into the leg drag. But we will be covering the no gi version of it as well. So let's take it back to our gi grips. It really depends on what level your opponent's at. If he doesn't really know jiu-jitsu and I make grips and Kjar's legs are loose, so in other words he doesn't put tension in his legs. If Kjar's legs are loose, I can just push them to the mat and physically just walk into that space. Okay. Better jiu-jitsu is when I make grips, Kjar's T-rexing. So in other words, he's staying like a ball, okay, which is probably the strongest position we can make in the human body. Notice now when I make grips, if I move Kjar around, he just stays like a ball. Okay, even if I pass the guard and put weight on Kjar, you know, he's safe because he's like a ball. Okay, but the good thing about that is, once I get to this position and there's tension in Kjar's guard, once I cut the angle, the minute I start pushing Kjar's far knee to the mat, this knee will move also. Does that make sense? When there's tension in the body. And if he's done jiu-jitsu, he will be tense. Which positions? If I just lie like this and my legs are loose, Kjar makes grips, he just stuffs them to the mat and walks around. He doesn't even need a knee slice. Once he pushes my feet to the mat, he'll just occupy that space. Whereas if there's tension in my guard and Kjar stuffs my feet to the mat, I'm seated. Now I can start playing jiu-jitsu. So we always want to be thinking about, anytime we're in the guard, we are connected. My elbows to my knees, if Kjar stuffs my feet, I'm into the seated guard position. We're going to use that to our advantage. Okay? Notice the way this is an advantage of gi grips, because when I make those grips and there's tension in Kjar's body, the minute I cut an angle, alright, and I start pushing the far knee, even without touching this knee, that knee will move. Okay, see the way Kjar's turning onto the side? Whereas if I was playing no gi grips and I just cut the angle, Kjar's legs stay where they are, I've moved, he's still flat on his back. Does that make sense? So we're going to take advantage of the robustness of these grips. So first thing I'm thinking about is I make the grips so you can just slap and grab. Now again, the advantages is when I cut the angle and push, Kjar moves. Disadvantages of gi grips is when I make grips, Kjar makes grips. Then he'll start putting his feet in. It's not the end of the world. We're going to cover all these things later at the end of the mesocycle, passing individual guards, but it's not really an issue, because when I make grips and Kjar makes grips, I've just cut the angle. So if he tries to go into like spider guard and shit, it's just not happening. And I'm stuffing this knee to the mat. So the two directions we're thinking about is two lines. Kjar's got a line through his hips this way, and he's got a line through his spine this way, the center line. I'm pushing the outside knee to the mat, just keep it on the same side. I'll push the outside knee to the mat, to the hip line. The second knee gets pushed to the center line. Does that make sense? So from here, the drill is, I'm staying outside the toe line. I'm gonna make the grips, okay? I'm gonna cut an angle, so if I move to my left, the far knee gets pushed to the hip line, okay? The second knee gets pushed to the center line. Now, Charles gonna pretend he knows jiu-jitsu, he's not gonna lie flat on his back. Okay, he's gonna stay connected. Now what's gonna happen is, and this is the weakness in the Torianda pass, there's a lot of space there. Once I get to this position here, I cut the angle, okay? I push the knee and we're there. Look how much space I have to fill. Whereas if you think back to the over-under and the double-under pass, the second I got to this position, look how close I am. There's very little space. And space from a guard passing perspective is what we don't want, you know. As guard passers, we want to suck in all that space. We want to try and get as little space as possible. The more space there is, the more options Carl has, and more likely, because I'm so far away, is he's going to frame, which means I'm not going to side control, I'm going to knee on belly. And then we'll talk about collapsing the frames, just one simple version of it. So one, don't go past the toe line. Two, make the grips. Once I make the grips, Charlotte can make grips and play spider guard. Take it back. I cut the angle. And now from here, I'm pinning the far knee to the hip line as I stuff the other one to the center line. Notice now the amount of space I have to fill. Carl hanging on to my wrist isn't doing anything. I'm just going to hang on him. He will frame. Everybody frames. So the second I push this down and I push this, whether he's putting one hand on me, just use two for the sake of the drill. Now from there, hard for me to get chest to chest. I'm just going to move into a knee on belly position. Okay. So again, I'm bringing my shin across his belt line. My instep is tight to his hip. Car's framing. He will do different reactions like pushing on the knee, pushing on certain types of my body. For the sake of this drill, we're not going down a major rabbit hole. Car's just going to have two hands on me from here. I'm going to collapse his frames by just removing the profile of my chest. So from here, I'm just going to turn my body, and we're back into that flip principle, controlling the hips. Does that make sense? So again, from our position, we just start from a supine position. So again, I don't go past the toe line. I make the grips, I'm going to cut an angle. I'm going to push the far knee to the hip line. The second hand pushes to the center line. Car's going to frame. I move into knee on belly. Once I'm here, again, his hands can be in different places, but we're going to keep things simple. So my shin comes across his belt line. My right foot is tight till his right hip, and my left leg, I don't want to keep it too far here. Car can underhook it and all that stuff. Keep it a little bit back. Now I'm just interested in collapsing this frame. Notice the way my chest is parallel to Car's. I just take it away by turning to face him, or sorry, turning towards his legs. So this hand just comes behind. And we're controlling the one more time on that. So, don't go past the toe line, make my grips. Before he can do anything, I cut an angle and I just pin. Again, once he starts to frame, hard for me to move into side control, so I come to knee on belly. And now again, there's arm bars and all this stuff here, but we keep things really simple. I remove that profile by putting weight on Carl's arms, try to keep your frames, and just collapse and control. Okay.